Am I the butthole for getting up from my chair in the middle of Christmas dinner and shouting "shut the frick up" about my body, i.e. in response to my husband's observation? So, ever since I had my son months ago, my husband has started making indirect comments about my body. He never says any hurtful words, but I find his observations, as he calls it, hurtful. For example, he'd see me wearing an old top and say, "Oh, that top used to look good on you, but not anymore though." Or when he looks at my waist and says, "Wow, didn't know your waist could get this wide." Basically passive stuff that I tried to ignore. Today I learned it extended to friends and family. FYI, this went on for months and months and months. We went to Christmas celebration at his family's home. My sil complimented my floral maxi dress and my husband said, "I agree, it looks nice on you, though I have to admit that your waist could get smaller than this." Awkward silence took over. I was absolutely fuming, and this was my last straw. So I got up from my chair in the middle of dinner and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Shut the frick up" about my body. He was absolutely speechless as his family stared while some others tried to get me to calm down, but situation got more tense and dinner ended up being cut short and my husband storming off to his friend's place to spend the night, upon leaving a very nasty text saying I embarrassed him and made a scene over an observation he made. He called me childish and told me to get therapy for my insecurities instead of verbally abusing him and scaring his family. Now I feel like an absolute idiot butthole and like I ruined Christmas for him and everybody with my oversensitivity. Am I the butthole? I think the last thing your husband really wants is for you to get therapy. If you do, you'll discover that he is an emotionally abusive bully and stop feeling guilty for refusing to put up with his bullcrap. Not the butthole, but your husband is. Do as he recommended and get therapy so that you can regain the self-confidence he has eroded with his cruel observations. Not the butthole. Divorce him. He's gaslighting you. His observations, as he calls them, are all direct insults. He is actively body shaming you. Likely on purpose and fully aware of what he's doing. He wants you back as you were before and fails to realize that bodies change. He is abusing you mentally, verbally. You simply reach the breaking point and let it out. Don't start bottling up again. Rebuke him every time he says SMTH, in front of everyone until he either learns or leaves. Or in other words, he's shown his true colors. Not the butthole. Greater than, for example, he'd see me wearing an old top and say, "Oh, that top used to look good on you, but not anymore though." Or when he looks at my waist and says, "Wow, didn't know your waist could get this wide." This is not passive-aggressive and it is not an observation. It is degrading, humiliating and abusive. He's gaslighting you. The fact the comment during Christmas dinner was met with awkward silence shows that people see he is being an awe to you. He embarrassed himself and started the scene. You simply had enough of his bullcrap and stood up for yourself. Good for you. Please save yourself and your child from this toxic relationship. Not the butthole. So basically he's telling you, he married you for your body and now it's gone to pot cause you birthed him a baby? How's his hairline? How's his waistline? Am I the butthole for snitching and causing my friend to lose her scholarship/dream college acceptance? I, 19 female, am a sophomore in college and have a friend, Tia, 18 female, who is in high school and applying for colleges and scholarships. I helped her throughout the college process and she ended up getting an early action to her top college, and she got a full scholarship. I was happy for her until recently. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours and she started gushing about how Tia's essay was so heartfelt and beautiful. I asked to see it because I thought she had just forgotten to show me. She showed me many of her essay drafts. But as I was reading it, I was completely taken aback. The essay was one of my college essay drafts which I'd shown to Tia for reference on writing techniques only. I made this clear. I was livid. The essay was really personal, and she barely even tweaked it up. It was almost entirely copied and pasted. I trusted her with it, and this is what she did. In a fit of rage, I gathered all the evidence of me helping her with the college process, including evidence of me sending the specific essay to her, and I showed it to the school. She not only lost her scholarship, but she also lost her seat in the school. Now, people are calling me dramatic and shaming me for robbing her of her education. She's the only person in her family to get into college and receive an academic and athletic scholarship, so everyone was rooting for her, including me at one time. And while I didn't expect the outcome to be so severe, it was. Right now, I feel bad. I feel terrible. I feel like she took advantage of me, but I didn't want to be the cause of something so horrible. I did myself a justice, but at the cost of someone's dreams. Now I'm wondering if what I did was justified or not. Am I the butthole? Edit. First of all, thank you to everyone who offered kind words of reassurance and support. I obviously cannot reply to everyone, but I am going through all of these comments. You guys helped me realize that I wasn't in the wrong. All the nasty "you're the butthole" comments, you guys also helped me realize I wasn't wrong. Someone said that they hope all the Tia apologists are worked on by doctors who cheated throughout medical school and have their houses worked on by cheating electricians. Secondly, I didn't expect this post to blow up so much lol. I went to bed soon after posting it and thought that I'd wake up to 50 to 60 replies at most. Somehow, I'm on the front page too. Crazy stuff. I'm probably going to get downvoted, but you're not the butthole. If she is plagiarizing just to get in, she is definitely not going to survive her first semester in college. Most colleges has a no-nonsense policy with stealing others' works. I have seen a lot of my peers who just forgotten to cite their source properly for their quotes, and get in trouble with the school. So yeah, not the butthole. Yikes, this may not end up being popular, but not the butthole. If Tia really copied your story, then that would be plagiarism and is a dishonest way of getting into college. It sucks she lost her acceptance and full ride, but she didn't really earn it in the first place if she cheated to get in. Not the butthole. She wasn't actually accepted. The university thought they were accepting a different person. Not the butthole. Plagiarism and this behavior is not allowed and should never be condoned. It sucks to be in your position too, as it is a lose-lose. Am I the butthole for leaving my boyfriend behind and going on the trip with our friends? I've been with my boyfriend, I'll call him Paul, for 3 years and living together for 6 months. Paul has serious problems with forgetting important documents, and after the 4x he did this, I became responsible for carrying our documents in my purse. According to him, all documents have a digital version and that is enough. Not all are digital, passport, and not all places accept the digital form, but he is stubborn and maintains this position. I don't mind being responsible for the documents, and most of the time, I have them in my purse. That is until one day, 2 months ago, he called me asking about his identity, because he needed it for something and they didn't accept the digital version. I was at work and I informed him that I had with me. He gave me a huge scolding, saying that their documents should be at home and told me to stop holding his documents. I handed his documents over to him and said that I would no longer be responsible for this or warn him about it, because I was doing a favor for someone I love who is a capable adult, 27. For the situation. We and our friends decided to travel to another country on New Year's from the 12/27 to 01/03, and a passport is needed as it is on another continent. We would go to the capital where we would stay at our friend's house until our flight time. Our city is 2 hours away. We decided to go to the airport 4 hours before, visit the VIP room, and I went to check all my documents first. Paul was on my side, and when he saw only one passport, he asked about his and I just said you have it. He panicked, saying he thought I had taken even more passports as usual and left it at home. He decided to run home and come back. He asked me to go with him, but I didn't want to spend 4 hours in the car. He went to get his passport, but complained that this was something to remember him by, and I went with my friends to the airport. In short, he didn't arrive on time and I decided I wouldn't miss my trip because of him. I turned off my cell phone and made my 12 hours trip. When I arrived, several messages from him saying that he couldn't believe that I had gone on a trip without him and that I had done it as forms of revenge because of his scolding. The flights are all booked up or too expensive, so he probably won't come. He's still accusing me of leaving him behind after purposely not remember something I know he struggles with. My friends are on my side, but I feel doubtful. Am I the butthole? I forgot one detail. I always make a list for our trips of what to take. His passport was on the list and he still forgot it. Not the butthole. He wanted his documents back. You gave him his documents back. He forgot his documents. Not the butthole. He is a grown-ass man who is blaming you for his irresponsibility. He self-sabotaged the trip, expected you miss it by coming home with him. He is pissed because his plan did not work. Not the butthole. This is a red flag and you need to move on. Am I the butthole for snatching my son's brand new Nintendo Switch he got for Christmas out of my nephew's hands? So this Christmas me, 26 female, and my GF 25 decided to go half on a Nintendo Switch old for my 5-year-old son, which came out to a little over $400 with the warranty. I was supposed to get it for his birthday in September, but I couldn't afford it at the time. My son was really happy he got his gift. This past Monday, my sister and 8-year-old nephew came over to spend a few hours with me, my son and my daughter. All was well until after they left we couldn't find the Nintendo. We searched under the couches, behind every TV, opened every cabinet/drawer. Even under the fridge. I didn't think my nephew took it, the thought didn't even cross my mind. I didn't try to get a new one with the warranty because the warranty doesn't cover loss/theft. I just figured it would pop up in the house eventually when we weren't looking for it. Earlier today I went to my sister's house to drop off some leftover food I made from yesterday's dinner, and I noticed as soon as I walked through the door my nephew jumped off the couch and darted in his room and closed the door. Again, didn't think anything of it, but I did decide to sit and talk to my sister for a bit. My nephew came out of his room to use the restroom but left his room door open. Now they live in a small apartment, so you can see his bed from where I was sitting on the couch, and lo and behold I see a Nintendo Switch sitting on my nephew's floor in front of his bed. The blue and red controllers gave it away, you can't miss it. I get off the couch to go pick it up, and when I turned it on, my login account was on it, so I knew it was my son's. He's 5 years old, so he uses his account under my name with parental control, of course. I asked my sister why my son's Nintendo was here, and she acted as confused as I was. My nephew came out of the bathroom and he yelled, "No. Give it back," and snatched it out of my hands. This is where I may be the I snatched it back from and told it wasn't his and you can't steal from people, and he just started screaming and falling out kicking. When I snatched it back, my sister was pissed. She started cursing me out and telling me snatch anything from her son's hands. I argued that it was my son's Nintendo and she knew I was looking for it. My son never took it out of the house, so there's no way it ended up at my sister's home across town on its own. This woman had the audacity to try, she didn't but she tried, to snatch it back from me. It turned into a screaming match and I just walked out because it wasn't going anywhere but physical if I didn't. It's crazy because when I asked her why my son's Nintendo was there when I first found it, she was as confused as me, so for her to switch up that fast because I snatched it back from my nephew is beyond me. I would understand if I snatched it too hard and he fell, but he didn't fall from the snatch. He purposely fell from his tantrum. Yes, he is 8 years old and still throw huge temper tantrums. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole. And FYI, your sister knew the whole time. Not the butthole. Your sister knew he had it. Don't let them in your home again. Not the butthole. Your nephew is a thief and your sister is a bad mother for raising him in a manner where he is comfortable stealing from his own family. And especially for doubling down when his theft was discovered. Am I the butthole for getting my fiance's family gifts that were too personal for Christmas when I'm new to them? I'm engaged to Noah and this was the first Christmas I spent with his family. I met them in the summer after we moved to be near his family now that he's finished with college. We're getting married in February and we're expecting our first child together in May. Being someone who has no family and seeing how close his family was, I wanted to make sure I showed my appreciation for them with the gifts I gave, so I tried to get something each person would love. One of his sisters loves to read and so I made a book sleeve for her with little details from all her favorite books. One of his nieces is on the spectrum and has wanted clothes for her stuffy, so I made some clothes for her to put on the stuffy. I bought his mom a jewelry box that she had admired a couple of times after she mentioned never having a real one. For his dad, I bought him a frame for his office big enough to hold photos of his whole family on, since he always complained he couldn't find one big enough or nice enough, and had no more room for individual frames. I included photos Noah had provided me in it. I got his other sister her favorite makeup, which she mentioned she couldn't afford to buy lately. Then I got his brother a signed piece of memorabilia from his favorite sports team. For the rest of the nieces and nephews, I bought wish list items the parents weren't getting. Noah thought they would love everything. He told me I didn't need to go to the effort I did. I spent weeks tracking everything down and searching for certain items, but he really thought they'd like them. But when Christmas Day happened, I could tell something was off. I spent the whole time worrying that I had bought them stuff they didn't like anymore or something. They said nothing. But then the next day they asked Noah what the hell I was thinking, and I was like some kind of stalker buying them such personal stuff when I'm an almost stranger to them. The next day we saw them again and I apologized for the gifts I gave them and told them I would be a lot more mindful in the future. I offered to make it up to them. One of his sisters called me a stalker to my face and told me it was no wonder my family didn't want me if I was so creepy to do stuff like that. Noah yelled at her. I apologized again and told them I didn't want to hurt anyone and I would learn from this. They told me I had overstepped. Noah said we were leaving and they owed me an apology. I feel so bad. Noah is supporting me and told me I did nothing wrong. But surely there wouldn't be so much offense if that were true. I need to ask, am I the butthole? Also, not sure if this is relevant or not, but I grew up in an unhappy home. My parents were unkind to me and my sister. She was much older and also hated me. I think maybe because of how our parents treated her. But I ended up with nobody who wanted me by the time I was 16 and I was homeless for a good period after that. That's what Noah's sister meant. I had told them honestly when they asked. I wanted to clarify something that might sound strange. I had spoken to them on the phone before, but we had not met in person until this year. With COVID and us living in a different city at the time, I had not gotten the chance. But they were genuinely all close before this. Sorry for another edit. I just wanted to clarify that we had met in person before Christmas, and more than once too, but I feel like I messed up expressing that here. I met them for the first time in the summer. Also, since people have been asking, they got me gift cards and they did not return the gifts. Not the butthole. Your gifts sound very thoughtful and you ran them by Noah. Not sure what's going on with his family, but in the future you can save a lot of time getting generic gifts. This is really sad. You went above and beyond for the family of your fiancé, and you were met with distrust and mocking. Not the butthole. That's hard to get over. Glad your fiancé is standing by you. I'd distance myself from his family ASAP. Not the butthole. While tailored to their interests, none of those gifts seem particularly personal to me. They are obviously based on what your fiancé told you they liked. not the butthole. And if my son ever brings home someone so considerate and sweet, I will make sure he knows she's the best woman he can ever hope for, and he better treats her like the angel she is. I can't get behind people who don't want nice gifts. I would be happy to be seen in my interests and or needs. Not your fault. Also, Noah sticking up for you is great. He knows why he loves you, for sure. Am I the butthole for saying good job to my son after he scribbled on my husband's home office walls? I've been painting a mural for my unborn baby's nursery and my son, 3 male, has been watching and helping me do it. He knows it's a gift for his little brother and he wanted to do the same for his dad, so he went into his home office and scribbled all over the walls while my mother-in-law was watching him. When we saw what he had done, our son was really excited, but I think my husband was in shock because he was just looking at the scribbles without saying anything. I told my son good job and that it looked really pretty, but he needed to use paper next time instead after he said he made a present for his dad. My husband never said anything in front of our son, but when we were alone, he was upset that I said good job to him because he doesn't think I should be praising him for vandalizing his office. I told him he just wanted to do something nice for him and we could have the office repainted or I could turn it into a mural if he wanted me to, but he's still upset at me for encouraging his behavior and he keeps locking his office so our son can't go inside again. Am I the butthole? There is a middle ground between saying good job and punishment. You should not have praised your son for drawing on the walls. Husband is right here. You're the butthole. This is a really hard one for me to decide, quite honestly. I think the more positive approach you took is understandable, but I also think your husband and his irritation towards potentially encouraging it was also valid. Wish there was a no one sucks option. Edit, a kind soul reminded me about no buttholes here. You're the butthole. I'm all for non-authoritative parenting, but this is taking it a step too far. Telling him good job instead of explaining why it's wrong right off the bat reinforces the bad behavior. I would also be upset if a kid drew all over my office walls. He's 3 and mimicking something he saw his mom do in his unborn sibling's room. This is super normal behavior that doesn't warrant getting angry over, especially given the clear reason for it. Wow, what a beautiful drawing, but next time let's use paper / your easel / etc. here, come help me clean this up. Is not in fact bad parenting, it's good parenting, people just don't like it because it isn't fear / consequence based. The only place I can see that you went wrong here is not having your kid help you clean the walls immediately. No buttholes here, edit from not the butthole, though. Not all parenting and discipline requires punishment. ETA, I actually don't think that your husband is the butthole either for locking his office door so your son can't get in, at least temporarily. That's setting a boundary, which is okay. ETA, y'all, I'm aware that she didn't actually say the words in my comment. It was an example of a healthy response in line with what she did say. I don't think her response was perfect because she didn't ask the kid to help her clean up. Hope that clears things up a little. Am I the butthole for making my mom feel bad by telling her why I only make Japanese food? Here's an update. I talked to my mom and told her I didn't intend to hurt her feelings, I was just defending myself when she came after my cooking. She said that she feels that I'm still holding a grudge from long ago. I said while I'm still hurt by it, I'm not holding any grudge, if I was I wouldn't be here. She apologized for walking off and complaining. As for the cooking, I told her if she does the meal prep and finds actual recipes, I'll cook some stuff she wants. One problem with her teaching me how to cook was that she expected me to cook things without a recipe. She agreed and so far things have been going better. She sent me a video with step-by-step instructions of a meal she would like me to make. For some background, my 25 female mother is not good at teaching others. Whether it was schoolwork, driving or cooking, my mother gave me a very bad learning experience. She got unnecessarily angry when I made a mistake and would call me stupid every time I asked a question. Schoolwork I got good with on my own and my dad taught me how to drive. Cooking on the other hand, I only had my mom to teach me. This caused me to be very nervous in the kitchen and I could only cook basic foods. She did admit to her problems later on, but part of me still resents her because that doesn't erase all the times I had to sit there and hold back tears as she berates me. When I was about 20, I started dating this guy who loved to cook. It was through him that I learned to cook. Since he was Japanese, most of the food I learned to cook was Japanese food and I was completely fine with that. Recently my mom had an accident that led to her breaking her arm, so I moved back home for a bit to help out around the house. One of things I do is cooking, and I have been making a lot of Japanese food because that is what I'm most comfortable with. One day while eating, my mother said she is tired of Japanese and wanted to know why I always cook it while I'm here. I told her since my fiance taught me everything I know about cooking Japanese food is what I'm used to. She gave me a hurt look and said I know I wasn't the best, but I still did a lot to help you learn. I said yes, I know, but I wouldn't be able to cook a full meal if it wasn't for him. My mom got up from the table and went to her room. My dad said that was a bit cruel and I need to apologize. I don't think I need to because I was only telling the truth. While she did teach me the basics, because of her I was very anxious in the kitchen and couldn't do much. My fiance said I'm not completely in the wrong, but I should apologize to keep the peace. I need some other opinions on if I was wrong. Not the butthole. But mostly. Greater than recently my mom had an accident that led to her breaking her arm, so I moved back home for a bit to help out around the house. NGL, this is _ridiculous_. One broken arm ain't crap. And your dad's there, FFS. Not the butthole. And if they don't want Japanese food, then your dad can cook. I assume his arm isn't broken. Or if you're up to it, maybe your mom can walk you through a new dish instead of complaining about it. Might be time to move out again. Am I the butthole for telling my cousin how his wife really felt about their cheap wedding? My 24 female sister, 30 female, is getting married. Her and her fiance are going all out, no expenses spared, just like she always said she would. It's going to be an extravagant affair with hundreds of guests, and she's thrilled planning it. Our antisocial cousin, 31 male, makes pretty good money as a software engineer, but he has no social awareness and is extremely cheap. He would literally sleep on a dirty mattress on the floor with nothing in his house but a TV and console if his wife let him. That's what he was doing before they met. He thinks dressing presentably and having a decent home is materialistic. Now, my sister and I happily identify as materialistic, but he means it negatively when he says it. Since my sister started planning her wedding and gushing about it to me and some other people, not him, he always butts in with some smarmy remark about how weddings are stupid. What kind of stupid woman would spend tens of thousands on a wedding, and brags about how he married his wife last year in their backyard and her ring was $200 from a strip mall and she was ecstatic. Today, my sister was gushing to me and my mom and some female cousins about her bachelorette party. My cousin came in and interrupted to brag that his wife never had a bachelorette party and would never want one because they're a waste of money, and she's so much more practical and less materialistic than most women. I decided to let him know how his wife really feels since she complains to us all the time about him and his cheap habits. I told him about what actually happened on their wedding day. Hours before the ceremony, when my sister and I and our cousins were helping his bride get ready at their house, she went in the backyard and saw their cheap, checkered white and red plastic barbecue tables and burst into tears. She was sobbing about how deeply ashamed she felt that her family and friends from college were going to see their cheapskate $700 wedding, and see her walk through her own backyard in a $90 dollar store dress like a middle schooler at prom. She said she thought her wedding would be special, and if she knew it would be this way, she would have eloped rather than feel humiliated in front of everyone she knew. They had to redo her make after her crying. So she's just as materialistic as normal people are. Why does he think she told people not to take pictures on their wedding day? He was livid, ranting that he spent $700 giving her a nice wedding and he's not going to waste his money on something so stupid. So how dare I say that about his now wife? He said no one cares about weddings and materialistic parties. He's like a child with having no concept of money or taste. I informed him the average cost of a wedding is $34,000. He humiliated his wife, and their wedding was the type catty people will gossip about for years. He was so mad he drove home through the snow. Everybody sucks here. You threw your cousin's wife under the bus just to twist the knife and punish your cousin, and you're the kind of catty person who is still gossiping about his wedding later. Your cousin needs to butt out and quit griping about business that isn't his. You both sound awful. Everybody sucks here, your cousin naturally for continuing to emphasize how his way is the right way. But you as well, because you did not get permission from his wife to share her feelings regarding her own wedding to him. Aside from that, there are plenty of weddings that are nice that cost far less than $34K, and more than $700, but if both parties agree on doing something really small and low cost, it wouldn't matter either. Am I the butthole for not backing up my wife? Backstory: my wife, 41 female, let's call her Lisa, and me, 40 male, have been married for less than a year. We also introduced each other to our families in the past year. Her family lives about a 7-hour drive, mine about 20 minutes, so we see my family more than hers. This is already a point of contention, but not the point of this post. We figured we would alternate holidays, and for this year, my parents got Thanksgiving and hers get Christmas. Next year we will flip that. But on to the story. My mom absolutely loves Christmas and giving gifts. Every year, she asks us to make a list of things we want to help her shopping. I get it's a little childish for grown adults to make Christmas gift lists, but my mom enjoys it and it's not much effort to put some small things on the list to appease her. So come Thanksgiving, we are at my parents' house, socializing, watching football. All 4 of us are football fans, and come halftime of the Lions game, my mom goes and gets 2 small pads of paper and pens and hands them to us and tells us to make our lists as she hasn't gotten any from us yet. My wife goes ballistic and starts yelling at my mom about how stupid that is, and she is 41 years old and doesn't appreciate being treated like a child. This caught my completely off guard. She then went on to accuse my parents of favoring my brother's wife over her because she is much skinnier, which is not true and is not basis at all. My parents have never been anything but nice to her. Anyhow, she storms out of the house and demands we leave. I refuse and tell her she's making too much of it. She finally relents, we go back in and have a very awkward dinner, I write a few small things on a list for my mom and we leave. When we get home, she blows up on me that I should have had her back regardless if I agreed with her, as that's what married couples do. I told her that was not reasonable. Fast forward to Christmas, we are now at her parents' house. It comes time for the gift exchange. Her mother explains to me a tradition they've always done, but I'm free to not participate if I don't want to. The tradition is that they draw names to see who gets to open, but before you open you have to answer a trivia question. If you get it right, you open and draw the next name. If you get it wrong, you don't get to open and draw a new name. I tell her mom, of course I'll play, mostly because I want to respect their tradition and also it sounds like a lot of fun. My wife breaks down in tears suddenly and I'm confused. It turns out that this was not a tradition for them at all, but her and her family colluded to have a childish game to try and make me participate and I was supposed to refuse. By agreeing to play I ruined the holiday and they didn't even have the trivia questions ready for the game they invented. Not the butthole. Get a divorce and run, dude. That entire family is balls to the wall insane. Not the butthole. Part of being a good partner is letting the other know when they are being the What kind of weird test from her family is this? Maybe run away before there are kids involved? Just saying. Am I the butthole for telling a woman I don't care about her grievance? 2 days ago my son got up early and went door to door offering to shovel people's driveways for cash. I think he made like $75. Well, yesterday morning I woke up to someone knocking on my door and was very irritated. When I opened the door a woman was standing there asking when my son was going to come shovel her driveway. I told her I doubted he wanted to get up early 2 days in a row, so he probably wasn't. She didn't like that answer. She said she paid my son the day prior to shovel her driveway for 3 days. This sounded unlikely to me. My son usually doesn't like to commit to things in advance like that. I told her she could come back and talk to him when he was awake. She asked me to wake him up, but I said no, because he's on vacation, so why should he have to wake up early if he doesn't want to? The woman was mad and wanted her $15 back. I told her to come back later and ask my son and just shut the door. She came back at 9 a.m., and when my son talked to her he said he never agreed to shovel her driveway multiple days, but that he would do it again for another $15. She was furious and said the price of shoveling a driveway is $5 and she already gave him $15, so he either needed to give her $10 or come shovel her driveway. He said no, he wouldn't shovel a driveway for $5, that's why he told her it was $15. If she didn't want to pay $15, she should have declined the offer. She told me to make my son give her $10, and I said no. I said they had a business arrangement, and it didn't involve me, so I don't care how they resolve it. She said I should shovel her driveway then, and I said no, because she woke me up and I have insomnia, and I don't appreciate that. Normally I'd shovel a female neighbor's driveway if she asked and I have time, because I know it can be difficult, but I wasn't inclined to feel charitable towards her at that moment. She asked if I cared at all about the bad spot my son put her in, and I said I didn't, because he can charge whatever he likes for a service, and if she doesn't want to pay, that's not my problem. She said I am in butthole raising an even bigger butthole, and then she left. I know I wasn't neighborly, but I don't feel like it rises to the level of butthole, because I think she was entitled. But maybe I should have been more empathetic. Am I the butthole? Not the butthole, you're teaching your son to stand up for himself. Good job. Not the butthole. Your neighbor views other people as servants and is deliberately manipulating the situation to effectively steal labor from a child. Am I the butthole for planning on celebrating my son's birthday on Veterans Day instead of my husband's service? My husband H, 32 male, and I, 29 female, have been married for 3 years. He is a veteran of the U.S. Army and values his military service as a very important part of himself and his history. He served for 8 years before he was honorably discharged. I gave birth to our son M nearly 2 months ago, on November 11th. It's a long way away from his next birthday, but we've still been discussing the logistics of how we're going to handle future holidays now that we have a baby. My husband is very particular about those kinds of things, and he really likes having an idea of how things will go a long time in advance. It finally came up that he had been born on Veterans Day, which my husband obviously knew, but I don't know if it sank in at the time. I told him that I intended to celebrate our son's birthday on November 11th, and we could have our Veterans Day dinner the day after. My husband was angry, and said that it's unreasonable to move a whole holiday when the whole U.S. is celebrating on that day, and that we could celebrate M's birthday the day prior or the next day. We still haven't come to an agreement. He thinks I'm in butthole for disrespecting his military service when the baby won't know his birthday is being celebrated a day later, but I think our son's birthday is much more important. Am I the butthole? Edit, My husband is service disabled and usually spends Veterans Day catching up with military friends and visiting a nearby veteran cemetery. He has lost friends in combat. I also think it's important to add, my husband is typically very modest about his service, and he is a wonderful father and a wonderful husband. His military service is something deeply important to him, and while I may disagree on how to handle our son's birthday, calling him a baby isn't fair at all. Regardless of the decision we make, I know he will respect it. He is generally very selfless and I'm not going to divorce my husband because of a disagreement. Not the butthole, and I'm speaking after serving 20+ years in the US military. Any veteran that would put Veterans Day above the birthday of his/her child is 100% the butthole. There is not one of my military friends that could even comprehend that. Not the butthole. It's kinda concerning that your husband wants to overshadow his own son on his son's birthday. Am I the butthole for not allowing my daughter to dress casually at my wedding? My 34 female daughter, 12 female, has been acting uncooperative in the context of the planning process for my wedding. I have been engaged for almost 6 months and the wedding is happening in 8, so this was the moment to start the selection of the bridesmaid dresses. My daughter said she didn't want to wear a dress like that. I was fine with that. I feel that having a junior bridesmaid is not really a necessity anyway, so she could still be part of my day from a more flexible role, but then she said she didn't want to wear any kind of dress. I still thought that was valid. Maybe she could have wear a suit or something else. The issue was that she ended up saying she wouldn't wear anything expensive or formal to the wedding because she feels that kind of clothing does not represent her individuality, not just from a gender perspective but also from a cultural and social point of view. She says she will only accept coming if she can wear the following outfit: a Manchester City shirt, a long black pleated skirt and black leather sandals with 3 cm heels. I tell her it would be better if she didn't come then, but she says if she isn't at the wedding she won't recognize our marriage and still consider me to be single. We have been arguing about this a lot, but she does not changes her mind. My fiance, 41 male, feels we should let her come to the wedding dress in any way she wants and that it is not a big deal. I feel that she is acting crazy and we should not reward her for it. Am I the butthole? I tell her it would be better if she didn't come then. OP, she is 12. Don't you think she's already struggling a bit with the idea of you getting married? It's a huge life change for kids. How can you even say those words to her? You're the butthole. Edit, y'all not understanding in the replies don't get this as a child. It's odd to me how you expect her to process emotions in a more mature way than deciding she wants to feel comfortable in her clothing. It's not a rebellion. Her entire world is changing, her mom is getting married, her family dynamic is changing. If clothes are the one thing that can make her feel okay during such a life-changing moment, let her have it. OP would look like the best mom down the line for letting her daughter feel okay. She can learn dress attire to other people's weddings, events, in life. Edit 2, last edit to this, OP says her fiance is fine with it. That'd be a beautiful way for her daughter to grow a strong bond with him. He seems to even see this as more than just appearances/cares more about her presence than OP. Imagine OP down the line, your daughter would look back on you guys as being the fun parents who let her feel comfortable during a huge life event. She has many more events in her life to learn proper dress attire at. This is not a problem Reddit can solve. You need to sit down with a family therapist and get to the bottom of it. It's not about clothes. Am I the butthole for throwing my childhood in her face? So background, I, 28 male, have a little sister, 13 female, Josie. I'm sure some of you have a similar scenario with siblings and can relate to the fact that Josie and I have had very different upbringings. I don't think I had a bad childhood and I know my parents did their absolute best by me, just the facts are that when Josie was born they were more mature and prepared, meaning they've been able to provide her with more stability and opportunities that they could when I was a child. I am absolutely not jealous about this. If anything, I'm happy for Josie that she's getting such a good childhood. Now, the issue, our parents both have quite demanding careers, meaning long hours, so Josie spends a lot of time hanging out with my husband and I at our place. My husband and I are both IT guys in our 20s and we absolutely live like it lol. Pertinent here is the way we eat. We don't live off of junk food by any means, but neither of us is gonna say no to pizza, and if we get sent home from any kind of function with leftovers, we're eating leftovers for the next few days. Which is exactly the issue. My folks have been back at work after Christmas, so Josie has been at ours a lot. We spent Christmas Day with husband's family this year, and his ma'am sent us home with a frankly boggling amount of leftovers, so that's mostly what we've been eating this week. This includes Josie, who has made absolutely zero complaint on her own part and has, in fact, seemed pretty happy about it since Mill is a great cook and the kid just loves turkey. However, when my mom caught wind she kinda flipped out about it. For some reason, one of her big things the past 10 years has been a bit of an anti-leftovers crusade, and she believes everyone should just eat freshly prepared food every day, something about depleting nutrients the longer it sits. She got quite mad at the fact that husband and I had been feeding Josie with leftovers and had a bit of a rant about how we're depriving her of proper nutrition. I said we ate leftovers all the time when I was a kid and I turned out fine. She really went off at me about how I'm so bitter and twisted that Josie has had more stability than me and it's unfair of me to throw my childhood back in her face and to take it out on Josie as well. She ended up crying and hanging up the phone. I'm honestly mostly confused. Mom keeps texting me that she's sorry she was such an awful mother to me in a way that feels quite passive-aggressive, and Dad called me an ungrateful asshole for saying that to her. Josie doesn't seem to want to pick sides, but the Rents have been sending her to our aunt instead of my house when they work, so there's that. From an outside standpoint, does it sound like I was an asshole here? If I was, I'll apologize because I didn't mean to be, but I want confirmation if I fricked up or not first lol. Edit, just want to add a couple of notes here because people seem to be getting the wrong idea, so I want to clarify things. First off, Josie doesn't come to ours because the Rents are out gallivanting. They're just both hospital doctors, mom an obstetrician, dad an oncologist, so they don't really have typical Monday to Friday 9 to 5 hours and both work long shifts, often overnights. They do try to make it so there's always someone at home whenever Josie is, but obviously with those jobs it can't always be helped. Second, mom and dad really aren't bad parents or bad people in general. They've always been very supportive, loving, attentive and kind. This is really the first proper row I've had with either of them, hence why it's throwing me so much. I should also clarify mom's definition of freshly prepared is literally just not leftovers. A takeout pizza or a meal in most restaurants counts because it's made, or at least assembled, to order. A packet of super noodles counts because you cook it and eat it straight away. Pasta and sauce from a jar counts provided you eat it as soon as you make it. You get the gist. Not the butthole. And, honey, Josie doesn't have more stability in her life because your parents are more together and older. She has more stability because she has a brother who gives a crap and looks after her. Your parents are still crappy parents. From a mom's perspective, it sounds to me like your mom has a lot of guilt surrounding your upbringing, and the fact that yours was so different from your sister's, perhaps that's why she's reacted so wildly to your leftover comment. On the other hand, she should be grateful that you're caring for your sister at all. If your care/food's not good enough, pay for a childminder. She owes you an apology in my opinion. Not the butthole. Am I the butthole for calling the cops on my neighbor and kids? Preface, we live in a condominium with buildings close together. There is parking that runs between houses. About a week ago, as I was leaving our condo to pick up my wife, there was a man shooting a compound bow across the parking lot through an empty stall, with cars on either side, across a sidewalk at a Target sitting next to the building next to ours. My car was parked next to one of the cars next to the open stall. The bow wasn't the most powerful, I'm guessing a 50-pound draw. I walk out and ask if he's shooting it. He said yes. I told him he can't be shooting a bow in the parking lot. He said, "What do you care? You don't even live here." I told him I did, and pointed to my house, the one I just walked out of. Hindsight, probably shouldn't have told him what one was mine. He said he was told he could do this. I told him it was dangerous to be shooting in between the cars. He angrily gathered his stuff and said, "Are you kidding me?" I told him no, and if I saw him doing it again I would call the HOA. Wish I had said I would call the police. I get in my car and leave for 20 minutes. I came back and he was gone, so I thought it was over. This morning I look out the window and see 2 adults and 3 kids ranging from about 3 to 11-ish. The 2 adults and 2 older kids had a bow. They were standing in the same spot shooting across the parking lot through cars at a Target, this time sitting on the sidewalk next to the communal mailbox. So I called 911. A few minutes later the cops showed up. They gathered their bows in Target and went inside. I did notice the adults pointing at our door, obviously angry. We looked up the local law and shooting a bow within city limits counts as discharge of a deadly weapon. They were shooting where kids play, and even if they were careful, things happen. I feel like I was in the right, but am I the butthole? Not the butthole. I wish you were my neighbor. Good job. Neighbor was a complete shooting arrows in a shared parking lot. I hope that they learned a lesson and quit doing it. Next time, don't confront. Just call 911. Not the butthole. Grew up with bow hunters and you were right to call on them, as what they were doing is extremely reckless and dangerous. You made a mistake of telling him you would call and pointing out where you live. If you can, set up cameras ASAP, as they may retaliate against your house and or vehicle. Am I the butthole for ruining my groupmates' final grades and making them fail class? I'm in a highly selective major at my school where it's fairly easy to be kicked out, and a prereq is this absolutely terrible class that's so hard to pass. One of those classes that loves giving busy work but hates giving as. Anyway, one of our final projects was putting together a presentation and giving it in front of our 200+ person class and all of our professors. My group got together and established guidelines. They said that they don't like having a group leader and all tasks would be worked on together. I collected numbers, names, and emails and put together our group chat and documents. We later decided who would be doing what. I immediately got to work transcribing what was decided in the meeting for those that couldn't attend and had my part submitted to the group Day of Overachiever I know. No one responded and I figured that they were just going to complete it closer to the deadline. The deadline came and went but no work was done. I reached out because I heard nothing. Over the span of 3 weeks only one other person contributed at all and 3 group members never even opened the document. I finished it, sent them the final draft, submitted, and printed. An important part of this final was our peer review. I rated them all far too highly, trying to give benefit of the doubt and justifying their behavior. I wanted them to be able to pass the class. Well, it turns out they had all gotten together and tanked my peer review, dropping my overall grade an entire letter. This is where I may be the butthole. I reached out to our professor and sent her the edit history and view history as well as our chat logs and told her that I had done all of the work and deserved a higher grade. She raised my grade even higher than it had been originally but also tanked their grades, causing at least one of my groupmates to flunk the entire major. I don't feel much sympathy because I don't think these people need to be doctors anyway, but some of my friends have told me that I should have accepted the B in the class. I do think it's important to note that I never asked for their grades to be dropped, and if I don't get an A I will be dropped from my scholarship. TLDR, group members who did no work on final project tried to rate me poorly on peer evaluation. I send receipts to teacher and they end up failing class as a result. Info: why did they all get together to tank your peer review? It seems weird for them to do that for supposedly no reason. These types of people get sorted out during these weeder courses. You stood up for yourself and were professional, not the butthole. Am I the butthole for fighting with my son over an iguana? When my son was 11, I bought him a pet iguana named Gizzy. That lizard lives a life better than most people. He has full range of the house, has meals worthy of fancy restaurants, lots of attention and a large vivarium. My son Luke, 20, went away for college, so obviously I took care of Gizzy. Luke is living off campus with other college kids and told me he wanted to pick up Gizzy to stay with him. I said no. You can't move an iguana from a large vivarium and quiet clean house with a yard to a college frat house. He lives with 3 other boys his age and I've been to their place and it looks like a bunch of 10-yo boys live there. He told that it is his pet and I said it stopped being his pet when he left for college and it's not right to move Gizzy into a place that's a party house. So, no. Things are pretty heated between us and my wife thinks it's stupid and to let him take Gizzy because she thinks he will take care of him and I'm being emotional and controlling. Edit: yes, he was responsible with Gizzy, but that doesn't change the fact that living with my son and 3 brothers is a huge quality of life decline. It's like moving a Labrador from a farm to a studio apartment. Not the butthole. As a graduated biologist specialized in animal welfare, I can say that you are in the right here. The iguana is not a domesticated animal, and it's a sentient being, with feelings and capable of feeling stress and pain, even if they don't show it the same way we do. Your son seems to be treating Gizzy as a trophy or an object to show off. If he truly cares about him, he will consider what's best for Gizzy and not what's best for himself. A big change in routine and ambient can be extremely stressful to any animal. That aside, I do want to point something out. That lizard lives a life better than most people. He has full range of the house, has meals worthy of fancy restaurants, lots of attention and a large vivarium. Be careful with this mentality. Treating an animal like a human does not equal to treating it better or correctly. Do not give human fancy foods to an iguana. I just wanted to make this clear because we have to deal with tons of cases of animals who are treated badly, on good intentions and wrongful assumption of their needs based on humans' needs and emotions. I do have the impression that you know what you are doing and researched how to deal with a pet iguana, but I just wanted to make sure. In any case, I would put my foot down on this. If your son is treating Gizzy as an object without any respect to his well-being, then he doesn't deserve to have it. Sit down and explain to your son how moving to a smaller place could affect Gizzy. If he doesn't care, then just tell him to get a plush iguana. Not the butthole because it's in the animal's best interest, but how you approach could make you one. The animal is his, and if you go the route of, it's mine now, then that will just be a fight about possession/ownership. Keep the focus on the animal. Son, I've seen the house you live in and it's a downgrade from what animal has now. I know he's yours and you care about him, but you have to see that what you'd be taking him to would be smaller and more chaotic. Make it clear that, once time passes and he has a better setup, he can come get him. You also need to realize that any place he lives will likely never be as nice as what you have now, except that it doesn't need to be as good as your place but can certainly be a step up from trashed frat house.